Hey Miguel, it's Jeff here. Just saw your post about uh, the results, kind of the two different approaches to having results. One's logarithmic and the other one is exponential, and that makes sense. And I've done both, and sometimes I've actually found that in the startup mode that usually what I'll do is I'll come in and create a department and I'll start up and it goes exponential, but it will plateau because I've standardized it and got it stable after the growth. And then I hand it over to somebody else, and then I go do another one, and go start up another department, get it going, and then standardize it and harmonize it and stabilize it, and then go do another one. So the that growth pattern, going like that and then stabilize it is not a bad idea. It's actually pretty good because it's uh, in that kind of mode. You have to get things going, and that's normal. And then the whole goal is trying to at least get it into some kind of routine from chaos. And then the other one is, the whole going like that and getting it up and finally getting it going. Done that too. Sometimes told people if you want to keep me, you better go faster. So have used that too at times, but more than once. And have just said to people, I'm not going to stay if it's going to take way too long because it's just not worth it. But I think another thing to really comes into play here is I'd like you to look up Melissa Lampson. Melissa, Melissa Lamson, Lamson, and look up the three cultural traits that you cannot ignore at work. Okay, three cultural traits that you cannot ignore at work. The exact wording is that you might have to play with it a little bit to get it. I don't have it here, but she has. I think here you're talking about just results, okay? And actually, not all cultures, at least, think in the term of results that way. And sometimes you have to think about, return on investment versus return on outcome and that kind of thing. So there's a difference about that. And Melissa's article is really good because it boils down. She's an intercultural specialist, and that's what she does for consulting for companies, big companies. And when I saw her come give a talk once, she talked about these three things, and it corresponded to with a lot of things that I had actually been doing as well, in writing articles, intercultural stuff, and all that, and my master's and doctoral work and stuff too. And I've worked on a lot of this and taught this too, so I mean it's not new. But her stuff I think was really good because it brought down all the different cultures she's worked with into three different kind of um, two-faced things. Well, here I don't know what to call it. I don't want to call them binary. I don't want to call them binary, but let's call them binary. I don't want to do that, but I will do that. So three of these streams, and one of them, which is the first one, which I think is important for the one you're talking about, results. She says that all cultures, regardless of the culture, are either results oriented or process oriented. And there's a lot of truth to that. Okay. So there are cultures, I work with them all the time, every day, who are into, because you do the process, it's what's important. You tick the boxes. You do the things because you're told you got to tick the boxes and you got to do things and you got to do things. And you're doing it just because you traditionally have to do it because that's what you're told you have to do. Whereas there are other cultures, and so I'll give you, the German culture is very much that way. And now that's changing. Okay, I have checked this with a lot of German colleagues too. And there's the generational aspect is kind of coming to play here. But everybody come my age, and older, and kind of down to about, mm, let's say about the age 30, it's beginning to kind of change a little bit. But there's still this self-prophesying aspect of it. It keeps propagating. It keeps self-propagating itself, even with younger generations, because older generations want to keep that. Or it's not want to keep it. It's just it's what it is. So this results oriented versus and real results, just results, and that's the idea of the fast stuff. Okay, in general, But there's the aspect of process oriented. Because you followed that thing, you're going to have the result and you're going to be able to say that you did it at the end. Okay. Regardless of whether it had good results or not, it's the fact that you did the steps, the tasks. That's the result. And then some people say, well, some people count that the fact that they made PowerPoints was the result because it's a process, right? So you can say that the PowerPoints are deliverables, which for me, PowerPoints are not deliverables. They're just a byproduct of what you have to do. But I know people that believe that we should count that we made PowerPoints as part of our deliverables, which yeah, I'll put them in a thing saying we did this, we did it, but it's not a deliverable for me. It's not a well, it's not deliver. It's not a proof of results. Okay, it's a deliverable to be able to get something done, but it's not the result. Okay, so that's the difference, and this is really where this thing kind of comes into play here, of process oriented versus results oriented. Kind of plays with that's going to play with your different your views of this because you could say that the people that some of the people that are doing the exponential, or they're stuck in the exponential, are stuck in a process oriented focus, and so they have to go through all these things to be able to get to the end of that after you do something, say they get result. Okay, whereas the people that are doing the logarithmic one, they're very results oriented. Okay, so of this kind of this binary approach, which it's not really binary, it's just a spectrum, it's a continuum along that, and there are some that are more or less of one side, and then you've got some that are so you could say like the Germans are one side of it on the process oriented. You could say the Americans, Anglo-Saxons in general, I'm going to say Anglo-Saxons in general tend to be results oriented to a certain extent. Okay, and then you kind of have ones that are kind of in the middle. Let's call them the French. That are, it's you like they have a thing called, and I actually wrote an article this in Multilingual magazine like in 2004, how to work in the French, and I talked about this and the idea that they have something called Système D, and System D for débrouillard or débrouiller, which means do it yourself, figure it out, just make it happen. Okay, it doesn't matter how it's done; it's just that you do it um, when you have to get it done, and that's a value. That's a value. It's a very high value for the French culture, and so this kind of plays into the thing too. This whole the results. It wasn't because you did the process, because you figured a way to make it happen. And the French are good at that. When you're stuck in this situation where you need to make it happen, you don't have the support, you need to do it. You're just going to make it happen. So they call it winging it. I mean, sometimes you could call it winging it too, whatever you want to call this thing. And it's not quite winging it, but it's kind of that way. So that's one of those three cultural traits that plays into the graph you're talking about. Then the second one that she talks about, and these are all kind of interrelated too. They're not completely separate. They can all be combined, and this creates this interesting matrix of decision making in cultures and all this. Then the second one is cultures can be high hierarchy versus low hierarchy. So high hierarchy is that you have the layers, decisions, and things are top down. That's kind of the approach. So the people on high make the objectives, and it comes down, and we tell you what to do. Whereas low hierarchy is you make it as flat as possible, and it's all grassroots. And then everyone's making decisions. It's the whole new work kind of thing. Sometimes they call it new work. Some people call it T or whatever. And this whole new work kind of approach of things is just we want to unlearn hierarchies, okay? And then we want to make it grassroots, and then you make it. And what you do is you make it happen at the low level. And so what happens is it takes on, and when it finally gets to the the vice president level, it's just a formal approval of something that's already in place. It's not that you have to get a decision made to make things happen. It says it's already happening. So you got. So again, I've seen in German cultures, a German culture on a lot of things, and lots of different teams. And it's not just been the company I'm working for. I've seen it in other ones too. the fact you have to go through a top-down approach, and you got to convince an executive sponsor to do this, and it comes down, and then it comes down, and you make decisions, and it's because you made the decisions that people are going to have to do it. But that doesn't make change the fact that people don't have time to do it or can do it, and they weren't consulted on whether they could do it or not. You know, whereas if you do it at the low level and just make it grassroots, then you've got adoption. And then by the time it finally gets, and that kind of doesn't always work in some cultures. They don't like that, So, but there are cultures that like it. You make it happen, and finally, so Anglo-Saxons tend to do that. But there are other cultures that kind of do this too. I don't want to start going through everything here because I don't want to make the video way too long. But and then the third so you get the hierarchy, low hierarchy with the results and process oriented. And then the last one is time controlled versus time uncontrolled. Once you get time controlled, folks, Germans and Americans, and I'd say Anglo-Saxons, tend to be more time controlled. You got to be there on time. You got to be on time. You're 1 minute over, it's like Germans like freaking out because they're just like, hey, wasting my time. Whereas the French, I'm just giving a dumb. The French you're like, it's okay to arrive at the dinner 15 minutes late. In fact, that's okay. And then you've got some of the different African cultures, like we're not going to start the meeting until people all arrive, and the people might arrive actually like a day later, or something. And it just, you get, when people get there, you start meeting. And I'm kind of exaggerating, but I'm not. It kind of depends, and this all kind of plays into, if you're doing business meetings, it's like a different diplomatic thing, you just don't wait for people to arrive, that kind of thing. I mean, this gosh, but in general, it's this whole thing of the importance of time, and how time is. And there are lots of shows that show this, how when people kind of celebrities, they go off to some little corner of the world, and they take it there and like completely, just taking this little place and a little pocket of people up in Nepal and the mountains, and just have to live there for like a week and kind of learn how to deal with that. It's totally different. So I think those kinds of things play into your chart. And I think that results thing isn't just results. I think there's also the fact that you've got to deal with that process-oriented kind of approach. And whether or not time controlled and time uncontrolled plays into the chart too, you see? And this is not, like you said, it's nothing linear. A lot of this is not linear. It's a matrix. It's a complex matrix, actually, that's happening behind the scenes. And then you get all these different intercultural approaches and how people, different bubbles of how people function within their culture, and then how they struggle with dealing with other cultures. And culture doesn't have to mean nation, okay, or language. Culture can also be subcultures of social cultures. Some of the socioeconomic things, like castes, Indian castes are different cultures. That's one example. And you've got other cultures, educated versus, the I don't want to say uneducated because I don't like to say that, but those that have got diplomas, and you got a university degree, and then you got a master's degree, and then you got a doctor degree and that kind of stuff. And I can kind of joke at that because I got those too. So, but I got a whole stack of them. But there are, I think this all is interchanging, and that affects your results thing, and how that is. And then if you're a small organization or big organization, so you're saying startup stuff versus big. I mean, the chart that you showed, you can show startup mode versus big company, corporate enterprise mode. Kind of. And it's true that if some companies, if you're doing the long curve thing, if you take like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to put in place, you'd be dead. You would kill your company in a startup mode. So that's not even an option. So that happens. But then you've got some companies, the big companies, that allow you to they allow some departments to be startup mode, kind of a startup thing, and that's the whole thing of entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff, um, and that's where you start, taking. That's where all the Scrum and Agile kind of stuff came from too, and that's all kind of become, standard business as usual topics now. But when they were happening, I remember I worked in extreme agile in a startup, and it was just like this is the early 2000s. It's like this is survival mode, folks. You got to sell, you got to do it, you got to make it happen, or if not, you don't have a salary at the end of the month, or just that way. So you're just always stressed to want to make sure that the company's making money, so you can have a check, on time. So for your pay, for your salary. So this is all these things come into play, and we all know this, but I think that comes into play, and so like freelancers are going to have a different approach to doing things depending on who they're working with, who their customers are. If they're working for bigger customers or they're working smaller ones, this all comes into play, and how they fit into that whole, the cog within the wheel thing. Um, and if they're working or if they're working for a lot of smaller things, they're going to have to be more, really, really results oriented. Where if they're working for, people that are doing, big corporations, it's like, hey, boy, when are we going to start getting this done? And we make the decisions right, they're playing, internal politics of, decision making, so this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. And there's no answer to any of this. It's really interesting to talk about and discuss and to um, analyze and then try to summarize in some ways. And that's why I kind of do these videos too, to kind of help things that my experience doing. And this is great. You're doing this stuff, and we're all kind of just doing these things to help analyze how we can help people work in environments that they're not used to. And I think that's really helpful and really good. So hopefully this is another contribution to the topic in some way.